Greetings from Alligator Jesus. I'm here with N-Hype Magazine. I was born and raised in Miami-Dade, Florida boy for sure. And that's always going to be home, but after several years of touring with my brother Otto von Schirach, I really kind of felt like LA was calling me, at least the West Coast at first. And then eventually landed here 10 years ago. Been here, living here for 8 years, and have made LA my home. Really dug some roots down and started working with the community to make this more like home. Wow, perfect pieces of jewelry. You know what? If there were a perfect piece of jewelry, like if I were to ever make the perfect piece of jewelry, I would just stop making jewelry altogether. That's really like the artist's struggle. Like you always find ways to make it better, to improve your skill level, to improve the craft, and don't know if any artist is ever fully content and satisfied with something, even if it's momentary. You know, great, you feel good for a minute and you can feel the elation of it, and that satisfaction might fill you, but then you come back to it a day, a week, a month, a year later, and you're just like, man, I could have done so much better. And you do it. There's a lot of pieces that I have in my showroom that are like, you see them and they look like the same piece, but they just keep getting better, and there's new versions and new versions. Even on the website, I think you can find a few versions of the same piece. And I put them all up there, but you know, you just get better over time. There's no reason to go back and like, why would you make the same thing over and over? I'm about to remake the Godzilla ring right now, because that's one of the things that really led me to where I'm at now. You know, it was Takashi Murakami who told me, you know, stop doing art, stop curating. You're a jeweler. You know, when I showed him that ring, he was just so impressed with it. But even now, that's been like 8 years since that happened. Like, I feel like I could really kill that piece and do a lot better now. So there is no such thing as a perfect piece. Maybe perfect for a time and place in your life, but you really look for artists that are creating to the best of their ability with the skills they have and the means that they have at the time. Most difficult part of being a jeweler, this shit is expensive. Like, hands down, like there are other things like that are very pricey. A rapper's gotta pay for studio time and mixers and producers or whatnot. But like, man, when you're talking about things that fit in the palm of your hand, like pebbles sized diamonds, that if you lose it, boom, that rock is, you know, $1 million. To really do beautiful work and get things elevated, you know, you want to use better materials. I've kind of transitioned away from doing all silver, and it's mostly all gold and platinum now. Like, platinum is really a dense and expensive material, so that's like a setback. You know, that same piece that in silver might cost a couple $100 will cost, you just add a zero to it or two at times when you're dealing with better quality materials. So that's the most difficult part of this, is your desires of what you want to create just supersede your limitations of your budget and what you are able to afford at the time. So what clients get from me, aside from other jewelers, is I don't consider myself a jeweler. I've been many things in my life. I've been known and renowned for a lot of things, like whether it was the fine art, because I was curated into exhibitions and surveys of American art. By the time I was 18, I was in the permanent collection of MoMA, National Portrait Gallery, published in Nat Geo, and you know, all through my 20s, I was really well known as a photographer. And then, you know, also started a film festival, and with my friends helped create the Borscht Film Festival, which led to things like the production that I worked on called Moonlight, which ended up winning a couple Academy Awards. And, you know, throughout my time, I've always led this creative life. working with artists specifically as a curator, working with A-list artists like Murakami or Kaz and all these people in the commercial realm. And then also I was art director for a museum for many years. There's so many experiences that I draw from as a creative, and I never let any one title define me as who I am. So when I'm working with clients, and sometimes it's the creatives like these A-listers now that are coming to me to define what their look is or what their, whole persona embodies into a piece. I'm not drawing from just how can I take advantage of this motherfucker and run him up on a huge tab for diamonds and gold and just ice him out. I'm really looking at them as a creative expressionist and someone who's looking to portray or define their image in a way with jewelry that augments and elevates their style and elevates their message, not just, putting jewelry on somebody. It needs to mean something, and it's part of a total package. And as an artist and curator and art historian and everything else that I've drawn from in my life, working in narrative film, you want to tell a whole story. So when I meet with people, oftentimes they tell me they want something that they saw on Instagram, and I tell them I'll understand what they saw in that piece, but how that might not particularly work well for them, or sometimes it doesn't even possibly work for them in their mouth or their face. And I lead them towards what really is complementary to them, rather than what's gonna make me a big buck. I'm more about working with artists collaboratively. So not too many people in the jewelry world can bring that kind of experience into what I do. And it's, over 20 years of experience now in metalwork that leads me to creating more expressive, more interesting pieces. So I think that's what clients come to me for that they can't get anywhere else. I mean, every day you find satisfaction. I mean, I would not do this if I didn't find that same gratification, whether it's like a single tooth cap and it fits and that person's smile is now something that they're not self-conscious about, that they now are telling me or texting me weeks and months later, like, oh, I find myself smiling so much more, I can't wait to come back. Or like, recently, this past couple weeks, I've had several billboards in Times Square, whether it's Lil Nas X or Ghostemane, and album covers and music videos, and seeing these things, and I'm like hundreds of millions of views on the music videos, and the most noticeable thing on that musician is like the jewelry that's just popping, and it's something that I created by hand. I'm like, damn, I'm part of popular culture. I'm trying to convey to the masses that jewelry is something that is part of the culture, and it's part of the personality, and it doesn't have to be this showy Johnny Dang nonsense that everyone looks like they have the same damn smile. I'm bringing through personality of the people wearing it, and hopefully helping them in their lives and in their creative expression. I mean, let's just go to the list. I'm always updating this list on the website. Someone told me, you gotta put a list of everybody, because I can never even think about it off the top of my head. What's this about page? Dude, Bad Bunny, Ghostemane, Lil Nas X, Shawn Mendes, Bieber, Halsey, Ozzy, Green Day, Murakami, ICP, they were a big heroes of mine. Suicide Boys are big, Manson, Riff, Raff, Pussy Riot, Poppy. I made stuff for like Spike Jonze and Karen O, Kat Von D, Krizz, Kaliko, Lil Xan, Beyoncé, goes on. But these are like big names, and it's cool to see these names on paper or in a list and be like, oh shit, yeah, that's right. Because then the idea flashes back in my head. It's really, to me, about the projects. And I like that it's as far away as like Russia's Little Big, and as small as like rappers with like 500 followers from Miami that are just getting started, because then I get to see them grow. Like, I made grills for Denzel Curry, and I remember when that kid was like just a little jit in Miami, and when he saw me backstage, he just came over and hugged me. He's like, Alligator Jesus. I had totally forgotten that, you know, this little, I heard his name a couple times over the years, but I didn't know he had blown up. I'm like, yo, how's your music career going, bro? Is it going good? And he's like, yeah. I'm like, fuck. Like, it's cool because you, as a creative, get to see these people grow and sometimes hit the next plateau. So it's not always just about the big names. I also love seeing the smaller name rappers and musicians, and not even rappers, because I've made grills acceptable and the jewelry I make very easy to be worn by anyone, whether it's like, you know, petite girl musicians or creatives to, you know, 6'6" movie star rapper people. You know, it's really for everyone. So yeah, that is a big name drop list, but damn, man, it keeps going on. There's even more and more, and I'm looking forward to it growing. Definitely in college, like doing college work, you're really susceptible to the manipulation of your professors, like telling you what's right, what's wrong, and you really got to stand your ground against these figures of authority that are, especially, you know, they're in that position. You're paying them to teach you, and you don't want to be necessarily molded by them. You don't want them to shape you into a vision that isn't at heart what you are doing and what is your voice and what is your message. Because when I was doing photography in college, there were a ton of other photographers that were all like patting each other's on the back because they were very much just clones of one of the professors. And that was how you got validation in that school, was like, if you fit in with them. And I totally fit out. I was just like, this thing out here out in left field. I was also a photographer, but I was doing the degree in sculpture. I was also doing the degree in jewelry making. I was also an art historian. And I was also doing environmental science. And I was doing all these multiple degrees and fields of study. And the photographers were like, you're not a photographer. You're doing performance art too. You're doing that. And, you know, if not for those years touring with Otto von Schirach and performance art and years being on stage, opening up for like Skinny Puppy and these big name acts, you know, I wouldn't have had the experiences of traveling and forming my culture and my influence even further to who I am. So, you know, it's really thinking back to school and my decision not to go into a master's program at the time when I was excelling in art, to not be molded further. And it's funny because when I found myself as a director of an art gallery here in LA, I would talk to these really big collectors and they would ask about some of these younger artists, because younger artists are often considered the hot ones. And since I was younger, I was in my late 20s at the time, they would ask me, oh, have you talked to them? Are they going to school? Are they gonna go get an MFA? And if I would say, yes, they're gonna get an MFA, they would just instantly not want to buy their art. And that was often the excuse was, oh, well, if they go to the MFA program, they're gonna change their art completely. They're not gonna be making the body of work that they're doing. They might completely be influenced. And yeah, I guess that's the one time where it's like the most difficult, because getting your point across and what you want to say as your message can really be susceptible to being molded in a different way. Not hating on school, a lot of people need it. I definitely benefited from it, but you know, don't take everyone else's words and input too to heart, because oftentimes they don't know you and your own personal message as well as you do. And it's really a lot of deep digging into who you are to get your point across. As I advance in my career, I am constantly reflecting back on the things I've done in the past. I mentioned a little bit earlier where like I'm remaking pieces over and over as my skills level up. And I've got pieces in like display cases right here where it's like a piece I did in 2002 where I molded a body part, and then there's pieces that I made as early as like last week, molding body parts. All that stuff is stuff that you will constantly those skills, you will constantly be working with them. And then I never imagined that I would be using the material, the dental alginate, which dentists use to take your dental impressions, that I would be using that on a daily basis with making grills back when I was, for instance, working in all these other fields. Like now I find myself calling back on all my skills from my early 20s, mid 20s, and oftentimes, sometimes you find yourself reflecting back on some experiences, some skill that you got in a totally left field kind of weird environment, like things that I learned on a movie set will then play into my jewelry making practice. And it's so strange, you just gotta always look at your life experience as a whole experience rather than, defining as like, oh, well, if I'm a jeweler now, I don't reflect or use anything. And my God, like there's even skills that I learned when I was like working retail or movie theaters and stuff. Even the way of engaging and interacting with people in general. You always kind of find yourself reflecting back on some of these experiences if you're an introspective kind of person. I've got the most experience working with silver, but I love working with gold and platinum and diamonds and emeralds and precious stones. I find myself enjoying most working with gold right now. Just the luster of it, the properties of it, it really is a special kind of material that I like to work with. I think it was KidBuu was in here a couple days ago, and I said, just it up. Like, wear that piece till all the diamonds fall out, till the chain literally breaks. Like, just live in it, If you are wearing jewelry and you're just so dainty and perfect about it, like, what's the point? Like, just live with stuff to a point till the stones fall out, till it breaks, till you step on it, it falls off when you're on stage or in a mosh pit, it can always be replaced. Never feel too attached to any material thing. So that was, I guess, the thing I was trying to get across to him was like, in this life, you're just gonna lose everything eventually. So why not wear it and wear it till the wheels fall off? All the time dealing with difficult customers. Like, in the end of the day, I'm just one man working on this stuff, and people come at like a small business like myself with the mentality of like Amazon, that they're talking to amorphous, non-creative entity. Someone just looks at my business and thinks like that I'm going to give them that kind of service, and it's not. I'm a creative, so try to respect when you deal with handmade and one-man show kind of operations, because we're doing our best, and as we get more attention and blow up, it's harder to focus and get your piece done fast. I guess, I don't know. I'm gonna start working like tattoo artists. I know some tattoo artists have like wait lists that are over a year long. I think that's gonna be the way I do this, because I would never want to stop having fun doing this. And I think that's the one thing that people have to remember. I'm doing this because I have fun doing it. So if you make this not fun, I'll just give you a refund. I'll work on someone who is gonna make it fun for me. People skills are everything. I gotta put my hands in your mouth. Like, if you don't like talking to me and interacting with me, there's nothing more intimate than this. So, I gotta be very personable and nice to be around. And I'm nice until you're not nice. So, yeah. Hobbies outside of work: traveling, photography, scuba diving. I like to get deep. Just organizing events with friends, whether they're private, intimate, 5 to 10 people, or a little bit larger, but everyone's socially distanced, and just collaborating and working with people. Like, I just helped Little Big get people to guest in one of their holiday music videos. So I love collaborating with people. I guess one of my hobbies, whether that's not jewelry related and not work related, is just working with creatives and creating more content, more creative expressions out there. So I think that's the one thing I could say is like my biggest hobby. Like I'm constantly like working with Ouija Mac and all these other musicians to get their creative processes and projects out into the world and realizing them in a way. Linking, whether it's linking with a director, with a musician so that it can make a dope ass project because I see the vision of one and the creative talent of another, and they are not connected in whatsoever way, but I can be that glue and that bridge that links all these people. So I think that's like my biggest hobby in the world, is just being that connector and getting more people to be making more creative, cool shit. I always think back to some of the earliest lessons my father gave me when I was a little kid. Like, you're never anywhere you don't want to be, ever, unless you're in prison or 6 feet underground. Like, that applies to any conversation, any job, anything. And I've walked out of dates because, hey, it's lame. Like, I'm out. I walked off of a job, just like, nah, you're disrespecting me and you're disrespecting everyone else around here. I don't need this. There's never a paycheck or project and situation where you need to subject yourself to things that will mess with you or dampen you and your light in any way. Like, if it doesn't suit you and it doesn't work for you, like, just figure something else out. There's always another way. And I guess the other lesson my dad told me was like, tell me who your friends are and I'll tell you who you are. And I didn't understand that for many years. I hung out with a lot of shitheads. I'm from Miami. I never smoked weed or drank or anything and didn't get into that culture. But whenever I find myself with degenerate people, I somehow find myself in situations that are, you know, degenerate kind of situations, I guess. So I'm very cautious about who I keep closest to me. I really define myself by the company I keep. An alligator, and just totally changed my life. It's kind of where the name Alligator Jesus comes from. Wrestled this alligator with some Native American friends, and after we were done molesting this poor creature, they were gonna kill it, and I was not gonna allow that to happen. So they made me let it go, and I don't know how to let go of an alligator that you've just pissed off. The thing broke my wrist, and made sense at the time because I had long hair and everything. They made fun of me. Oh, that's what you get for trying to save a gator, like you're some sort of alligator Jesus. And that whole little situation where I could have just not cared, they would have killed the gator and it would have just been a regular day. I would not think about that. But this creature, you know, really came this close to dying. And, you know, in life you always have these, I thought twice about saving it, you know? Even after it broke my wrist. So, you know, it's like the two heads on the gator on the logo. You know, you always have these situations in life where life can take you in one or two directions, and it's depending on what brain you're using. You know, are you using your common sense and your mindfulness and being present in the moment, or are you just oblivious and just going by your animal nature to like kill things and like not do the right thing? So, yeah, you know, those kind of situations in my early childhood or, you know, youth kind of influenced me to always make the right decision and always do right by others. Don't lie, don't cheat, don't take the easy way to do anything. Easy money is easily lost. So, you know, it takes a long time to build up a career and an artistic practice. So, looking forward to continuing to do creative stuff well into my old age. I mean, it just had a huge shakeup with COVID. So I don't even know what needs to change right now, other than there just needs to be like a good respect for things made by people, by hand, rather than like the expectations that everything needs to be cheap, fast, and made overseas, because, you know, we're gonna see that kind of industry go away as more nations develop and America's position in the world starts to get knocked down a notch or two by these developing nations. We're gonna see that our ability to buy cheap goods is gonna just go out the wayside. So you're gonna wanna find more skilled, talented people that have the skill sets of the generations that are dying out right now. Because look, jewelry right now, I know 4 jewelers that have died in the past 5 months. And with them goes knowledge of mastery of this craft. And you know, you're never gonna be able to get that kind of work done again unless kids from our generation and the generation below mine, younger than mine, starts to value these skills and value these things that are being made by these knowledgeable old timers. And that takes years and decades to develop that kind of skill. So what I'd love to see in this industry is just more appreciation for craftsmanship rather than the just throwing up of the cheap consumable good that is something that's made overseas. Like, you know, support small business and support people in their journey of creating cool stuff. That's all good marketing, man. Like, diamonds are shit, really. There's so many of them. It's a controlled market by De Beers. They own like 95, 94% of the supply. When you got a monopoly on the supply, and you know, when you look back to the marketing of, you know, that a diamond should be, what, 3 months salary, and understand that's one person figuring out a way to sell more diamonds. You know, you got rappers that really have a lot of influence over what people want with what they say in their music and what they purchase. And you've got quite a small group of jewelers that are defining what is, you know, that market, because, you know, they're upselling things. You can't with the naked eye tell the difference of a shit cut VVS versus a brilliantly cut, beautifully faceted SI. It's gonna hit more light and be brighter, you know, because there's more facets for it to reflect light. You know, there's so many things that go into it. There's really just great marketing on the part of some of these jewelers that are convincing their clients that they need to be buying this and need to be buying that, you know, and they all look like clowns to me because they're buying these obnoxiously large, really tacky things, and we're gonna have a pushback eventually. Like when you look at old 80s jewelry, you're like, oh, that shit's tacky as hell. And we're gonna look at the jewelry being made at this time, the really flooded out, obnoxious stuff, like Johnny Dang's Godzilla piece. You hear me, Johnny Dang? That thing is garbage. You for making such a horrible Godzilla piece. Everybody just trash talks it because it really is a piece of shit. Like, that thing is awful. It's just flooded with diamonds. Who gives a shit? You know, there's no craftsmanship on that. You know? That thing doesn't even look like Godzilla. I take it personally because he's my favorite kaiju. He's my favorite monster. But like, you know, people on the other side were like, oh yeah, that thing's so badass, it's flooded. You know, flooding something with diamonds, you can find people that will do that work in China or in India for you, and it's gonna look like some diamond encrusted doo-doo, rather than something that's really beautifully made. So it doesn't really matter what kind of diamonds you put in, that's up to the person. And I always tell everybody buying my jewelry, like, when they ask me how much is this, I'm like, no, how much is your budget? What can you afford? Because no one should be going broke buying jewelry. If a decision is paying rent or buying clothes for your baby, you know, or making investments for your kid, you know, it's always do that. You don't need diamond grills. You don't need jewelry. That doesn't save your life. It might help your career because you look cool and you can be amongst peers, but you know, that foolishness that people are always concerned with, like diamond testers and whatnot, that's for YouTube bullshit. Like someone comes to try to diamond test you, slap them in the mouth, you know? Like, fuck out of here with that. I got A-listers wearing CZ, you know? I'm not gonna drop names and say all that and put people on blast, but you know, there are even diamond testers that always test diamond. You can't, the whole industry is full of so much fraudulent bullshit, and you can't tell from the naked eye, and you certainly can't tell from a picture or a YouTube video the difference between an SI or a VVS or even a flawless, an IF diamond. So just buy what you can afford, rock it with confidence. That confidence is really what you're really paying for, like your ability to have confidence, because if you know it fucking shines good and you know it's real, but it doesn't really matter what it is, SI, moissanite, PVS. You know, do what you can afford and what looks good for you. Something I recommend for them, I always ask, what's your budget? Like, what can you afford? Because I can make you the most badass silver grill you've ever seen, or I can make you a platinum iced out, crazy creative piece that no one's ever seen. Yeah, it always depends on the client and who they are, what their personality, and especially what's their budget. Because, I mean, there's no point in even wasting my breath if I'm gonna recommend a $12 or $20 or even $40,000 kind of necklace or piece, and you've got $120 in your pocket. Like, there's no conversation there to even have. Like, buy me dinner, because you're wasting my time. What's next for me? I mean, this studio is growing. We just hired 2 new people this week, getting things streamlined here and organized so that I can provide the public more creative, interesting pieces, and definitely having a reevaluation of where I spend my time in 2021, where I will become much more of the designer and creative, because I'm getting knocked off by a lot of people copying my designs right now. There are like other jewelers that I've been friendly and invited into the studio only to then see them directly knock off my pieces. So it's time to elevate the game and change things up and really prove to people that, you know, anyone can make this jewelry, but it really is the creative behind it to make it something special. So I'm ready to just define the industry with some new creative, alternative looking pieces that you've never seen before.